Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really diving deep into this recent sermon by Pastor Anand. It really struck a chord with me. He talks about grief, hope, and even brings in like connections to science. It's pretty
Yeah,
fascinating.
I know exactly the one you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, the way he talks about grief, like right off the bat, it was powerful. You can't just ignore it, and he doesn't pretend you can.
right. And he uses this word groaning
Hmm.
that really stuck with me. Like he talks about it personally, the groaning in your heart when you lose someone, but then he takes it somewhere else entirely.
Oh, yeah, he connects it to Romans, right, where Paul says creation itself is groaning, almost like in pain.
Okay, so walk me through that connection. Because I got to admit, the first time I heard it, I wasn't sure what to make of it.
Okay, so picture this. Romans 8.1922, it talks about how creation was like forced into this frustration, not because it did anything wrong, but with this hope built in of being set free.
Mm, yeah.
Like, think of it like after a natural disaster, right? The way the land is messed up, forever changed. There's this sense of like brokenness needing to be fixed. It's like that deep longing we feel when we grieve, right? But it's like nature itself is echoing that.
That's actually a really powerful image. So it's not just us alone in our grief, but this shared experience,
Yeah.
this longing that connects us to something way bigger.
Yeah, exactly. And that right there is that seed of hope that Pastor Anand's talking about. It's not just that we groan,
Yeah.
but that our groaning, even creation groaning, it points to something else, a future hope, this promise that things will be made new.
So it's not just wallowing in sadness, but recognizing that longing together. Okay, I like that. But it's one thing to talk about hope, abstractly. How does Pastor Anand make it like real?
He goes straight to the resurrection of Jesus. I mean, what's more hopeful than that?
And he doesn't just mention it, right? He
Yeah.
digs into how physical it was.
Yeah.
Like Jesus wasn't a ghost.
Exactly. And that changes everything, doesn't it? It challenges what we think we know about life and death. It's a glimpse into something we can barely imagine.
It's like that feeling you get when you first learn about like quantum physics. Suddenly there's this whole other layer of reality. Completely different rules from what we see every day.
And that's the parallel he's drawing. He's not saying science proves faith, but he's pointing out that quantum physics shows us there's stuff we can't see, like those subatomic particles, right? We're just starting to get it.
So just like we know now that there's more to the universe than what we see, faith suggests a spiritual realm just as real.
Right, it's about recognizing those layers can exist together. It's not science or faith. It's that they both give us a perspective, and especially when you're grieving, that can be really comforting.
Like this whole other dimension opens up, a different way to understand what happens after death, even though our loved ones are gone from here.
It doesn't mean they're gone completely.
Right, there's something more going on. Talking about all these different realms and dimensions is one thing. But what I like about Pastor Allen is he doesn't just leave us hanging there.
Right, he brings it back to us. Like, what does this mean for us, now, especially when we're dealing with loss?
Exactly. So how does he do that? How does he make these huge ideas about faith relevant to everyday life?
He goes back to the resurrection, but this time he's talking about our resurrection. And he doesn't just mean like the afterlife. He's talking about being completely transformed, something we can't even imagine right now.
Wow, so he's going there. He's getting into the big stuff. What does it even mean to be human? Life, death, hope in the middle of it all.
Yeah, exactly. And he uses that part in Romans 8.2325, where Paul says, like, we have the Spirit, but we're still kind of groaning inside, waiting for, to be God's children fully, our bodies redeemed. It's a lot.
It's like we're stuck between what is and what will be, right?
Yeah.
That whole already but not yet thing.
Yeah, such a weird paradox. We can't pretend grief isn't real or that everything's fine when it's not.
Right.
But then we also don't grieve like people with no hope because we have this promise. The resurrection means death isn't the end.
It's like walking a tightrope or something.
Yeah.
Balancing that pain with like lightness, knowing something better's coming.
And Pastor An's point is this isn't just some theological brain teaser. It's supposed to affect how we live now.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about getting into heaven later,
Right.
but letting that hope change our relationships, how we see things, how we face problems, even knowing it's not the end of the story.
Exactly. It's about finding that strength to keep going when things are hard, comforting others who are hurting, and like living with purpose because what we do matters eternally.
That reminds me of that quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He said, The quality of a person's life is in direct proportion to their commitment to excellence, regardless of their chosen field of endeavor.
Wow.
I wasn't talking about faith directly, but it's that same idea, living with intention, even when it's hard, because what we do matters.
That's such a good connection. It shows how powerful hope is. Like, it pushes us forward even if we feel stuck. We can embrace it all, good and bad. We're not alone. And in the end, love wins.
This whole idea of, hope as a driving force, it's really something. Like if we know there's something bigger, something to work towards, it helps us keep going when things are rough.
Oh, absolutely. And Pastor Anand, he doesn't pretend it's easy. He's honest about how messy it can be, living with that hope, but still in the middle of things.
Right. That's what gets me. It's not just believe and you'll be fine. He gets that we have hope, but we still feel everything.
Exactly. Hope isn't about pretending things aren't hard. It's about knowing God's there even when it hurts.
So what does that look like practically, though, for people listening who are going through it right now? How do you live with that kind of hope when things are tough?
Well, first, we have to let ourselves grieve. Really grieve.
Yeah.
Cry when you need to, be angry, tell God how you feel, talk to people you trust. You can't just skip over the pain.
Like that saying, the only way out is through, right?
Exactly. But we also can't forget that there's hope on the other side. It might be small, but we hold on to it and trust God's with us, even in the dark. And maybe that's where that whole creation groaning thing comes in again. It's not like a happy sound, but it is a sound of longing, waiting for something new to come from the brokenness.
Yes. And that's what Pastor Anand wants us to remember, to live with that awareness, not afraid, but expecting something amazing.
To trust that even when we can't see it, God is working, fixing things, making them new.
Exactly. And that even in the deepest grief, we aren't alone.
This has been, well, a lot to think about. It really hits home that even when life is hard, hope wins.
It really does. And that hope, it's not just wishful thinking, it's based on God's love, and that never goes away.
To everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has given you some comfort, maybe even some aha moments. Grief is a journey, and we're all in it together.
Don't forget, you're not alone, even in the tough times. Let hope be your guide. It'll lead you towards the light.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep searching, keep asking those big questions, and keep diving deep.